evening, everyone, and welcome to this special Wednesday edition of Speak Your Mind with host Larry Cox. It is great to have the guest joining me this evening. Nice little audience building so far ahead of our guests coming on the show. So, guys, let's do what I always ask you to do. And let's, if you don't mind, share and like the show so that the guest can have a nice audience and a good recorded viewership. So, what I'm going to do before I bring the guest on, I'm going to go ahead and say hello to everyone that's joined me this evening, and then we'll bring our guest on the show. I want to say hello to Sherry Thomas this evening. Good, Sherry. Chris Curran, and welcome, Chris. Buca Russo, welcome, Miss Russo. Justin Kenny, welcome to the show tonight. Catherine Lynn, welcome to the show. William Campbell, welcome to the show. Corliss Turner, welcome to the show. Jacob Bailey, welcome to the show. Gail Owens, welcome to the show. Janie Jones, welcome to the show tonight. We have Clayton Norwig, welcome to the show tonight. Nice audience build already. Kathy Robinson, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight. So that's enough hellos. Share, like the show so that your candidates will have a nice audience and be able to share the show to her campaign. So without any further ado, I will bring on Commissioner Dr. Doreen Williams, but I am going to let everybody know we are just going to have audio tonight from Dr. Commissioner Williams. She does not have video capabilities this evening, but she does have audio. And without any further ado, welcome to the show, Commissioner Dr. Doreen Williams.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Commissioner Williams, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and give a little spiel.
Okay. Well, I'm Commissioner Doreen Williams, and I am running for reelection for several reasons. One, I think experience matters. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to research the different components of the county government. But I have three key issues that I'm zeroing in on. The first one is housing. I've done a lot of work in criminal justice, working with the judges, the sheriff's office, the city police department, the mental health community, and housing, as far as recovery housing, is just really difficult to find suitable places. But that's not the only housing we're missing. We're also missing workforce housing and affordable housing. We just had a housing assessment done by the Atlanta Regional Commission that has given us some very specific ideas of what we can do to improve our housing stock in Rockdale. That housing ties into the next key issue, which is seniors and families. We know that we need housing for seniors, but there's so much more that the seniors need. One of the things that I have been really excited about is I worked with Deputy Director Susan Morgan from the Senior Center and starting a memory cafe that meets once a month at JP Carr. What a memory cafe is an opportunity for people living with dementia and their caregivers to come together. During that time period, those living with dementia do artwork, they do music, they play games, they talk with each other, they eat, they have snacks. The caregivers also get to have an opportunity to chat with each other and be able to get some education. Susan brings in speakers for them. I'm also working with seniors and children in helping with the Arts for the Ages, which is a collaboration of the Senior Center and Parks and Rec with the children's putting together a program for a day of all
Is that
different kinds of
is that the number two issue, the arts?
seniors and families is this number two issue.
Seniors and families, okay.
But the arts are part of my platform and what I
Okay.
would like to do. The third key issue is economic development. We cannot, we just simply cannot ignore economic development for a number of different reasons. But mainly, our property taxes cannot go down until we have a substantial increase in revenue coming from big businesses to so that we can lower the tax burden on the citizens and let those big businesses take effect. So again, experience matters. I've served in positions at the state level, at the national level, and of course at the local level too.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, and we'll get into those topics here in a second. But what I like to do is, excuse me, as we start the interview, is I like to let the audience get to know the candidate. And one of the ways that we do that is we talk about our early lives. So Commissioner Williams, uh, where were you born and where did you come from?
Well, I was born in California in Pasadena. My parents moved when I was 2 to a small town in rural California, Visalia, which is south of Fresno, which is a bigger city, if you're familiar with that. It's an agricultural based area. My father was a school teacher. My mother was a stay at home mom. My dad taught at a school that was primarily Hispanic children, and a number of those Hispanic children were children of migrant farm workers. And so I got this exposure very early on to social justice issues and the issues that were surrounding at that time in for me in my life the farm workers, the housing that they had to live in. The I still remember my dad pointing out the water faucet with one cup on it, saying they only have one cup and everybody has to use the same cup to get water. Just those simple things have stayed in my mind, I think, all my life. After I graduated from high school, I did 2 years at the community college in my hometown. And then I transferred to Brigham Young University and did my junior and senior years there and graduated with a bachelor's of in in French. Shortly after that, when I came home, I was in a real severe car accident and it kept me home for a year. And I met my husband during that year. And while I had intended to go back to graduate school at the time, I did not. He was in the military, he was in the Navy. It was the Vietnam War. And he was deployed about half of the first 2 years we were married. He was gone almost a year of that. So I have that experience too. Um, we have 5 children and 14 grandchildren. I did not go back to school until my youngest child was a senior in high school. Most of my children had some special needs, so to speak, which has become a focus of mine is in mental health because of that. And so I was teaching school, but I really needed to be home right as soon as school was over. I would go home and then start my second job with 5 children while my husband often traveled. So when Bradley was a senior in high school, I felt like I could finally find the time to go back to school. I did. I went to Walden University, did my master's degree in a master's of science in education with an emphasis on using technology in the classroom. I really liked being back in school. I've always liked learning, always liked being in school. So I thought, well, I think I'll apply for a doctoral program. I had no clue if I could get in or not. I researched different programs and found one that I really, really like at Georgia Southern. I thought, well, I'll apply. If I get in, I'll take a class. I got in, I took a class. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, but I passed. And so kept taking classes until I finally did graduate with my doctorate degree. I was 62 years old when I finished that degree. You're never, never, ever too old to learn.
And when did you move to Rockdale County?
So all my children were born in California. I met my husband in California. He was stationed at a Navy base about 30 miles outside of my hometown. And we met at church, at church events for young adults. Um, we married there. He got out of the Navy and we stayed. And all five of the children were born in California. When our youngest was 3, we moved to Pensacola, Florida, which is where my husband is from. We lived there 4 years, and I was teaching school there. I was teaching school in California too. I was teaching school in Florida. And then he got a job transfer to Atlanta. And so we settled in Rockdale in 1994. And so 32 years ago. And we've really liked it.
And that's what you'll find that when you talk to the majority of people who live in Rockdale County now,
Uh-huh.
they're not originally from Rockdale
Right.
County. The majority of the people who live in Rockdale County are transplants,
Uh-huh.
just like myself.
Uh-huh.
I moved to Rockdale County in 2005, so that's 11 years, after you did, Dr.
Uh-huh.
Williams. And you'll find, most people who came here, they love this community and they don't leave. They stay.
Yes.
And that's what you find. So, and I think that's what a lot of us have in common is that, we moved here, we like this community, and we want to see this community succeed. So I think that's, something we all have in common is we want to see Rockdale County succeed and do better. How do you think we do that? I mean, you talked about economic development, right? So and I'll be honest, it's difficult to do anything in Rockdale County because my folks that watch this show, I make this comment all the time. You know, everybody on the show, they all talk about wanting economic development and want things brought here. But then anytime we want to bring anything here, you don't want that. So it's like,
Right.
what do you want? Right? It's like,
Right.
What do we want? And we've got to realize that if we want the relief that we say we want for property taxes, and you mentioned it a minute ago, it's big business, right?
It is.
So
Mhm.
you have to bring big business in, and there are only certain kind of businesses that would actually come to Rockdale County because Rockdale County is very difficult to develop in because of the rock that's right below the surface. So what type of businesses do you think that we have an opportunity to come to Rockdale County?
Well, we already have data centers, and I know those are a big issue. People have a lot of misunderstandings about data centers, but they will provide us with some huge tax relief. I've got a sheet somewhere. that tells just the sales tax from their use of the utilities will bring in over $7 million in revenue by 2030. That is not counting any of the property taxes or anything having to do with the
No, are you
servers
talking
that are
about the
inside.
current DC block one? So,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Dr. Williams, Commissioner Williams, I would like to discuss the DC block thing too a little bit, because people, you
Mhm.
know, not certain if it is what it is. That was done. It's here. Not certain if they really did a good job promoting that center and did a good job of, advocating to the community for it. Right. But that's done. It is what it is. But I think people have a misunderstanding about the abatements. Right. So that is a graduated 10-year abatement. Would you
That
like
is
to tell
correct.
people what a graduated 10-year abatement is so that they understand what that means?
Yes. First thing you need to understand that this property was bringing in a few $1,000s in property taxes when sitting blank. So a 10-year abatement is the first year, and that we will begin collecting property taxes in 2027. The first year they pay 10% of the assessed value. Then year 2 is 20%, year 3 is 30%, all the way up to year 10, then it's 100%. So it's not like we don't get anything for 10 years. It's a graduated abatement. There is no abatement at this point on the servers coming in. The tenant that's using that has a contract to use the data center. So not everything has an abatement on it.
So there's not an abatement on the equipment.
Not that I don't think they've talked about it yet. In fact, I asked that question just a week or so ago. Um, and
Well, and I'll tell you, it would not make sense to abate that equipment. And I'll tell you why, because it depreciates, right? So let's just say
right, and
if you would give an abatement to that within the time it would become to tax it, it's not taxable because its value its value goes away. And I think Bill Barkley, even I was at a meeting a few maybe 6-7 months ago, and I think he said it did
mm-hmm,
not make sense to give any of the equipment or the such an abatement
right.
because by the time year 5 and year 6 came around, there's no value left to tax because the value of it has
That's
depreciated
correct.
so much. So I'm hoping we did not give an abatement. And I'll be honest, I have spoken.
We have
Yeah,
not contracted for any
I've
abatement
spoke.
on that. I'm not saying that the development authority won't do that. I don't know because the development authority does that.
Well, and that's what I've been
It's not the Board of
and I've
Commissioners.
been very critical of the development authority, and I am not certain if I'm in favor of them existing any longer because I think the counties and the cities and the Board of Educations would do a far better job negotiating for themselves than having these authorities. I think have done a terrible job in Georgia over the last few years with the data centers in particular, because I saw a study that said over 85% of data centers that got abatements would have came to where they came anyway, even if they didn't get abatements. So I think we need to be very careful with these authorities, Commissioner Williams, because I think, as one might say, they've given away the farm in a lot of different situations. And I would rather see elected officials who are responsible to the citizens negotiate these deals than I would these development authorities. And there's just too much room for corruption and payoffs with development authorities. And I am myself not a fan of them. Just me personally. And I would like to actually see them not have the authority that they have. That's just me. But I do, and I think there's another developer going to come in and try to do something. And I'm actually, after the election, Commissioner Williams, I'm going to do a series on data centers, and I'm going to do a show on. I'm going to have a water engineer come on and talk about closed loop water systems. I'm going to have somebody from Georgia Power come on and talk about actually how the cost is done for the power, and if that any of that is going to be passed on to residential power users. We're going to talk. I'm going to bring an acoustic engineer on, and we're going to talk about the acoustics of it. We're going to bring an environmental engineer on, and talk about are there any environmental hazards. So I'm going to do a thorough investigative series on this to determine some of the myth and some of the reality of what's true and what's false. And I think that needs to be done.
Well, Charlotte Gillert sent us a copy of a document put out by the Georgia Public Service Commission, and specifically about data centers. And there were some key points. I just got it today. I haven't had a whole lot of time to really study it, but some of the key points are that the Public Service Commission has entered an order where Georgia Power would ensure revenue from the data centers would reduce and not increase residential bills. They'll file quarterly reports with the Public Service Commission to track these new data centers, and they'll file studies to provide cost allocations that ensure data centers pay their total costs, and it doesn't get passed on to the residents and the consumers around. So there's some more in this information. I like I said, I just got it this afternoon. I haven't really studied it well, but anyway.
Well, I mean, and there were other economic development things, and I know there's several people have already mentioned in the chat about a Bucky's project that they were hoping that would have came to Rockdale County, and I know people have been waiting to hear about that land over at Sigmund, over off the access road. That the again, I guess the development authority technically owns. So, so I think, people want to know what's going to happen to their land over there, because it is our land. You know what I mean? Because tax.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is.
And this is the thing about it. And I've done some research, and a non-disclosure agreement is only valid if there is an active negotiation going on. If there's no negotiation going on, or if that negotiation has passed, then an NDA it doesn't exist anymore. And that
is correct.
So I mean,
but I can't discuss anything or disclose anything that's been done in an executive session.
That's not exactly. I'm not going to get into that, because we do executive session too, and I know the law regarding executive session, and then also, but if the data center, I mean it's the taxpayers are very frustrated when millions of dollars of our taxpayers have been spent on something, and our elected officials don't tell us what they're doing with our money and our property. They get upset. I mean, people are upset about that right now. I mean, they are. I mean,
all I can tell you is that there are still lots of negotiations going on with that property. It's like you said, if it was not active, then I could talk about it. But there are active negotiations going on, and I can't talk about specifics.
Okay. So, I had heard from some developers that the Bucky's deal was dead. So, if that is dead, then we could talk about it. So, if we can't talk about it, then I guess we have to assume that it's still a possibility. So that's what I guess we'll have to leave that with that, folks. So that's sort of, people wanted to know, and we asked that question, and we'll we'll see what happens with it. So someone did ask also on one of the other things that we ask every candidate that comes on here about this show, and it's the courthouse, and do we think we really should have done that, and uh, and what does our future look like with that debt looming over us?
So, I've been asked that question a number of times over the last few weeks. Why after it went to a vote, the citizens said they didn't want it, 2 to 1. The citizens said, no, we don't want to support a bond for it. But that didn't really solve the problem of needing space. The courthouse had been expanded in the 70s. It was built in 39. It was expanded in the 70s, but even in the 70s, we had no permanent judge here. It was all on a circuit. We were part of a circuit. We now have seven judges and full-time judges and part-time judges also. We've got judges sharing courtrooms. We've got some judges in courtrooms over on Main Street, some in the courthouse. Juries meet in the auditorium. It's kind of a scattered kind of a thing. And it's the judges and the especially the district attorney who were really encouraging and talking about the pressing need for space. The juvenile court attorneys were meeting with clients in the hallway. That's against Georgia law. You have to have privacy when you're dealing with a juvenile. There's a number of issues where victims would come into the district attorney's office, but they'd have to sit and talk with one of the attorneys in a space that was not private. They didn't have a private room to do that. So then, of course, there's the administration building that is being held up with steel posts on the inside, because when that property was purchased and renovated, and that was way before my time, the contractors went in and cut the trusses on the supports underneath. And so when a little bit of renovation was done a few years ago, all of a sudden the floors were caving in. And so, of course, we had to bring in engineers, and they determined that, we could put those steel posts up, but that was not a permanent solution. The cost to renovate the existing admin building was tremendous, because it would have to go from the ground up. It made sense because of those two issues to to add on to what we had across the street. And
there were people who actually provided alternative plans to actually build something off-site,
yes,
not in Old Town. That would have been a lot more cost effective. And I think that's one of the things. I don't think the citizens of this county actually opposed doing something. I actually think they oppose doing exactly what we're doing. And that's the problem. And I don't think anybody did a good job of explaining that to them, and then they felt the PFA was nothing but a way to circumvent their vote. And I mean, I'll be honest, that's when we want to talk about what happened in our election cycle 2 years ago. That's actually why you got the results you got 2 years ago. And I think people are not happy with that because they felt that their voice was not heard. And that's, the issue. And then I think now people are concerned about the park. They're wondering if there's going to be a parking garage. Somebody just asked about that too. Is there still plans for a parking garage?
Yes, there are plans for a parking garage, and included in the cost of the building construction was a 2-level parking garage. The city came in and said, we'll pay for another floor. And then the SPLOST committee said, we'll pay for another floor. So that collaboration with the city will make that far better than
Do we know where that's going yet?
we do. And I think that's been completed. I'm hesitant to say anything.
I don't think so. I mean, I've talked to some people on the SPLOST committee, and they're actually still a little confused if it's going to go. I mean, I'm just, they are. I mean, they're a little.
It's going.
They're a little confused about it too.
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, it's going. And there will be space in front of the parking garage for retail so that it will combine, retail with that parking. It'll be nice. It'll be a
William
nice
Campbell
thing.
asked a question about SPLOST gave, like it was 20 million to refurb. And I do remember when we voted SPLOST, it did have 20 million included for refurbishing of the old courthouse. Are we spending that 20 million on the refurbishing of the old courthouse as required by the vote?
Yes. It's that is part of the funding for the construction of the whole project.
Gotcha. So when, I mean, I've heard the dates for the admin building and the new add-on court. So when is do you know the date for the refurbishment of the existing building to occur? Is that going to occur after the old building?
So my understanding is this, and I'm not the chief operating officer and I'm not the CEO, so I don't keep all of that information in my head. But my understanding is this: the admin building will be finished in August. And so all of those departments that are going into the admin building will be moving in August. The new courthouse area is scheduled to be finished, I believe, in November or December. And then what will happen is, I'm sorry, my phone is dying and I'm trying to find my cord. Is that all of the court things will move into the new court space. And then they will start on the renovation of the old courthouse.
Gotcha. And then this question has been asked 3 times already. They want to know if they're going to knock down the historical church buildings to build the parking deck.
No.
No. Okay. So that'll be, I guess we're going to go on the other side of the buildings now instead of that in that direction.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. Charlotte says, yes, the minutes for the SPLOST Courthouse Subcommittee renovations are continuing. Okay. So, let me look and see. I think we had. Oh, so is that project on budget?
It's on budget and it's on schedule.
Budget and
Yes.
schedule. So within and then what Commissioner Williams said was that once both of these buildings are occupied, then that's when the renovation to the existing building will occur. Once that they have had the new buildings complete, then they'll move people out of the old building and then start the process of renovating the older building. So that makes sense. And then Charlotte said subcommittee SPLOST notes that the notes did say that the renovation was funded and will continue. So that's what she said in her comments a minute ago. So I'm assuming, Charlotte, you said on that subcommittee. Okay, Clayton wants to ask another question. This is always a hot topic question in Rockdale County. The expansion of the Board of Commission.
That is. Oh, did you have something else to say first?
Well, no. It just that you can't go to a meeting in this county. If you go to a meeting and you ask that topic, I'm just going to be real with you. 85% favor expanding the board.
And we just had that.
That's the reality.
Yes, we just had that conversation again today, in fact, at our brewing conversations that we initiated today. That was one of the conversations, was about that. And I think my position on that is I just want to see the data that shows what the costs are. I know that there's some that feel like expanding the board would also mean changing the form of government, but those are actually two different things. And it all has to be done at the state level. We can't just do it here. But I just want to see the data. I know what people want, and I think it could be that that's the best thing.
This is the thing about it. People want it, and the legislation you have to do, they vote on it. So ultimately, it doesn't matter what three people on the Board of Commission think.
No, it really doesn't.
It's what the citizens think.
That's correct.
And I think they're upset also because there was legislation that was going to give them the ability to vote on it. And there was a letter sent to the governor asking him to veto the citizens' right to vote. Whether anybody likes it or not, that's what it did. So, and then the people would have had the right to say up or down whether they agreed with expanding the board and altering the form of government. And it's a bad look when you've got sitting board members fighting the people wanting a vote. It's just a bad look.
Well, part of that, though, Larry, is that you have to understand that particular bill that was passed had a lot of confusion in it. It was not clear on how everything was going to be divided and worked out. You can't just put in legislation that says we want a 3-member board. You have to lay out exactly, a 5-member board. You have to lay everything out. How are you going to do that? And how is that going to change the
I know very well. I worked with former Senator Jeffers and Senator Brian Strickland to help draft legislation years ago that did not make it through. Correct. So I know. I'm very familiar with what you have to do because I worked with 2 senators to draft such legislation, and at that time also it was fought against by the current board, that board at the time. And it's just, that's what is upsetting to citizens.
Well,
it's their right to ask.
I proposed that we get a study done with through the Carl Vinson Institute that would lay out possibilities for different forms of government, different numbers on the board, that and then that we could look at and say this would be a good fit for Rockdale. But the other two commissioners did not want to spend the money. I think my thought is we will spend money in paying for lobbyists to get what is best for Rockdale that we could avoid if we would just put some effort in at the front end instead of trying to do it at the back end.
I get you. I mean, I think also you can look at different counties in the state and you see what they've done. And I'll tell you, to be honest, I really think Rockdale County really needs consolidated government. I think, with I think the city and the county, I think we need to look at a Bibb Macon, a Clark Athens model. In my opinion, I think
Well, and
that's what makes better sense for this
it
community.
makes,
It's my opinion.
yes, and I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I really do. We're a small community. There's, we're only one city. It just makes sense.
It does. I mean, it really does make sense, and hopefully, hopefully that's what we'll look at, right? I mean, hopefully that's what we'll look at, seriously in the next couple of
Mm-hmm.
years. Is what does it look like to consolidate government, and that would bring a lot of cost savings along with it when you consolidate like that. So
Yes.
that's my opinion. I'm just throwing it out there to you folks so they can start thinking about it and start asking questions about what does government look like. And you can do a little research, guys. You can go look up.
Oh yeah.
You can look up Bibb Macon and Clark Athens. They did it, and
I think
it was
Columbus
very beneficial.
Muskogee is now.
Columbus,
Columbus
Muskogee, you're
Muskogee.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did that also, and they did in Muskogee they did something years ago that is just happening now too. Muskogee had their own version of frozen property taxes way before the legislation that was passed last year. Muskogee
Mm-hmm.
County already did that. They've done that for a decade and a half already.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so you've got some of these counties have done these out of the box things all along. That I don't know if we as much need to do studies as we just need to look and see what other counties in Georgia have done and see what they've done might be something that looks good county and would work for us. I mean, that's what I think.
Yes.
Let me
Well,
see.
I always think we never need to reinvent everything. That we need to get information and look at what others have done and what works, and then adapt it to what works the best in Rockdale.
I mean, in my work, that I've done that for years. I mean, I have, I have been innovative and come up with, new processes and such. But I've also observed processes of other companies and thought that's
Mm-hmm.
a really good process. I think I'm going to adapt it, and
Sure.
done so myself. So when you see something that works, you're right. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Mimic it. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that we can all learn is mimic and look at things that are successful and copy those successful trends that others have already done and done the footwork for us.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Williams, we're 9:47. We're about
Oh,
50 minutes into the show.
wow.
Yeah, I told you it goes by.
Yes.
Before you know it. So So, some people are talking about we have great volunteer, and people are always willing to help, and they are. People are always willing to help in Rockdale County and do what they need to do to make. So I'll tell you what
Well,
I'd
they
like
do,
to
and
go
I
ahead.
was going to say I have really liked working with Commissioner Smith and Chair Van Ness because they both have really brought in those volunteers, and I think anytime you can get volunteers, you get excitement, you get buy-in, you get understanding. Um, that just creates a stronger foundation in our county.
Yeah, when we involve the citizens and we listen to them, then positive things do happen.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and that's what it does. It's involving the citizens, listening to them, taking their suggestions, and not just hearing them and appeasing them. Because there's a
Right.
difference between hearing and listening.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's what that's what they want. They want to be listened to, and they want their opinions to be
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged. So I find that's what is very important. So what I'd like to do at this time, if you would not mind, is if you could go ahead and give us one last appeal of you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and appeal for that vote. And we're gonna call it a wrap tonight because I need to go to bed.
Okay. Well, I things have changed a lot in the 12 years that I've been in office. What was really critical when I first took office was the need for a focus on mental health and criminal justice, that intersection. And so a lot of my time until about a year and a half ago was spent coordinating and spearheading and collaborating with the sheriff's office and the judges and everybody to make sure that our criminal justice system was treating people fairly, and that those with mental health issues and substance use issues were offered the opportunity to get into treatment instead of spending time in jail. The evidence of that is that when I first took office, our jail population was almost 500 inmates a day. It is down to below 350 now. And the sheriff, while he hesitated to see where I wanted to go, he eventually realized that this was really a good thing, and it has taken it so far as to actually um, set aside a pod in the jail for those with severe mental illness that must be incarcerated because of their crimes, but really need they can't exist and function in the regular in a regular pod. And so they have 24/7 now, mental health professionals, clinicians, practitioners, whatever, in that particular pod. That is running smoothly now. My whole goal had been to get it where all of that was in place, and the collaboration amongst the different organizations, the district attorney and the public defender. I wanted all of that in place so that whoever was holding this office, that would be part embedded in the county, which it is now. It is, I no longer have hands-on responsibilities with it. It's completely and taken care of in this by one of the Superior Court judges. So I feel really good about that. So moving on, you asked what is it that where would I like to go next? I think housing is absolutely critical for in all kinds of areas. What that assessment showed is that we have high end single family homes and we have public housing, but we don't have a lot of this missing middle is what they're calling it. Um, and we need to be able to look at grants. We need to look at programs. Um, what so I'm advocating for a housing professional to manage all of that, because if we don't have a staff member right now dedicated to housing. And if we can get a staff member dedicated to that, we can bring in grant money that we don't have access to right now. Um, so that's important to me. Seniors, making sure our seniors have what they need. And I think wa- uh, looking at the making sure that they have their homes are safe, that they are able to age in place, that they know where their resources are, and that we can provide resources for them through the senior center, especially. And we need to be really careful always about making sure that if we're going to revitalize areas, that gentrification doesn't leave out those lifelong residents that are aging in place. We want we want them to be able to still live there and afford it. And then the third thing, of course, is economic development so that we could bring those property taxes down. My property taxes exploded just like everybody else's. A good bit of that is, well, it's a national issue. It's why our state legislature actually talked about property tax at the state level, and we are not the only state that legislature that did that because it's a national issue. Because of the assessments of homes going up so rapidly, everybody's property taxes went up. And that especially hits hard the seniors. It especially hits hard it especially hits hard renters because they don't have the homeowners exemptions that a homeowner does. Their landlord is paying full cost. And so when those go evaluations go way up, they raise the rent. And lots of times people who are renting are just barely making it. And so that's a big concern of mine. We have got to transfer the burden of the taxes from the homeowners and the small businesses, because we don't want to burden them either, to big businesses. And it's going to help the schools. You're a sitting member of the school board. That is going to really offset what the school taxes can do for the citizens too. So to me, experience matters. I am the only local elected official serving on the Council for State Governments Advisory Board. Everybody else on that board is works at a state level. They either head a state department or they are a state judge from all over the country. But so that relationship, the relationships I've built, help to bring information and resources to Rockdale County. Because of my work, we've gotten millions of dollars in grants for services in different areas. And the same thing can happen with housing. And that's really why I am running again, because there is more work to do with housing.
more work to do with housing. I get you, and we'll have to see what goes on with that. So, people, we're going to go ahead and call this a night. You can go back, watch the recording of the show if you want to. Everyone, we thank you for joining us tonight. As always, I will be coming back on this Sunday. I'll post who my guest will be on later on this week. About Friday, I'll do a post about the candidate coming on. But thanks, guys, and Dr. Williams. You'd like to tell everybody good night one last time, and we're gonna sign off.
All right. Well, I see this last question. What exactly is my property tax bill? Well, I'll tell you that it's $700 higher than it was. And, you know, like I said, everybody has been affected. We have to we have to work on economic development. But everything is complex. There is no single left, right, gray, black, white. Everything is complex, nuanced, and you have to be able to work through all those different levels to research and get the best fit for Rockdale County.
Well said. So everybody, get out, vote, let your voice be heard. Because I'll tell you what, if you don't vote, I don't think you have a right to complain. That's my opinion about it. So, but if you vote, you got the right to complain all the way to the bank. So get out and vote, so that I think you have a right to complain. whether anybody else does or not, I do. So thanks, guys. I'll see you guys Sunday. Thanks for joining us tonight, Commissioner Williams, and good luck on your race.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.